If you grew up in Britain in the 1990s, you probably did things that wouldn't even be allowed today. No rules, no warnings, and somehow everyone survived. The 90s weren't designed to be safe. They were wild, unpredictable, and completely normal at the time. But looking back now, a lot of it feels almost unreal. Here are 10 things every British kid did in the 90s that would probably be banned today. 1. Playing Bulldog on the playground. There was always one game that went too far, and in most British playgrounds, that game was Bulldog. It started simply enough. One person in the middle, everyone else lined up on one side. The goal? Run to the other side without getting caught. But caught didn't mean tagged. It meant grabbed, dragged, sometimes fully taken down onto concrete. There was always that one kid, slightly bigger, slightly faster, who'd turn the whole thing into absolute chaos. You'd hesitate before running, trying to time it perfectly. Then someone would shout, "Go!" And suddenly it was a full sprint, heart racing, shoes slipping, bodies colliding mid-run. Sometimes you made it, sometimes you didn't. And if you didn't, you joined the middle, which only made it worse for everyone else. Teachers tried to ban it, assemblies were held, warnings were given, but Bulldog never really disappeared, it just went underground. 2. Riding in the back of a car without a seatbelt. Long before strict rules were enforced, car journeys felt completely different. Seatbelts existed, but they weren't always used, especially in the back. You'd climb in, shut the door, and immediately start moving around, sliding across the seats, leaning forward between the front chairs, lying sideways like it was your personal sofa. On longer drives, it became a game. Who could stretch out the most? Who could claim the best spot? Corners were the real test. The car would turn, and suddenly you were sliding across the entire back seat, sometimes crashing into your sibling, sometimes hitting the door, and somehow that was just part of the journey. No one questioned it. It was normal. Now, it would feel completely unthinkable. 3. Climbing anything that looked climbable. In the 90s, if something could be climbed, it was. Trees were the obvious choice, not small ones. The bigger, the better. You'd start low, testing branches, then slowly work your way higher until you reach that point where you probably shouldn't go any further. But you did anyway, because someone else already had. And you weren't about to be the one who stopped. Fences were next. Metal railings outside schools. Wooden fences between gardens. Then there were garages. Flat roofs that felt just accessible enough. You'd pull yourself up, stand there for a moment, and suddenly you were higher than everything around you. There was no thought of, what if I fall? Only, can I get down without anyone seeing? Falling wasn't rare. Scraped knees, dirty hands, the occasional limp home, but none of it stopped you doing it again the next day. 4. Drinking from the school tap. After PE, there was always one thing everyone needed: water. But no one had bottles. Instead, you had the school tap, usually slightly bent, mounted low against a wall, constantly dripping. You'd queue up, slightly out of breath, one by one, leaning down to take a quick sip. The water was always cold, with that faint metallic taste that somehow made it feel even more refreshing. There was no wiping the tap, no sanitizing, just one after another. Quick sip, step aside, next person. And somehow, that was completely normal. 5. Knocking on doors and running away. It had different names depending on where you were. Knock down ginger, knock and run. But the idea was always the same. Find a house, knock the door, and run. Not just a jog, a full sprint, down the path, around the corner, straight into hiding, behind a car, behind a wall, trying not to laugh. Then came the best part. Watching from a distance, the door would open, a pause. Someone looking around, confused, no one there. Sometimes they stepped outside, sometimes they didn't. But either way, you were already planning the next house. It made no sense. There was no reward. But somehow, it was endlessly entertaining. 6. Recording songs off the radio. Before playlists, before streaming, before you could just search for any song instantly, there was the radio. And if you wanted your favorite track, you had to be ready. A cassette tape already inside the player. Rewound. Waiting. Finger hovering over 2 buttons at once. Play and record. Because you had one chance. You'd sit there listening, completely focused, hoping the DJ would finally play the song you'd been waiting for all day. Sometimes you waited minutes, sometimes hours. Then suddenly you recognized it, that first note. You hit record immediately. Too early, and you got the tail end of the previous song. Too late, and you missed the intro completely. But even when you got it perfect, there was always one problem. The DJ, talking right over the beginning, every single time. You'd sit there, hoping they'd stop, waiting for that moment when the music finally came through clean. Sometimes they faded out just in time, sometimes they didn't. And your recording started with someone saying, and that was another great hit right here. You kept it anyway, because that was your version of the song. And once it was recorded, it stayed, played over and over again, rewound, replayed, until the tape itself started to wear out. 7. Sharing sweets with everyone. One bag of sweets never belonged to just one person. The moment it was opened, it became communal. Someone would bring out a packet, wine gums, fizzy cola bottles, jelly babies, and instantly it was passed around. No discussion, no hesitation, just a circle of hands reaching in, grabbing quickly before it moved on. You didn't check what you picked. You didn't worry about anything else. You just took your share and kept talking. Sometimes the bag didn't even make it all the way round. Someone would take a slightly bigger handful. Someone else would complain. But it didn't matter, because the next time it would be someone else bringing the sweets. There was an unspoken system to it. And somehow, it worked. Looking back now, the idea of 6 or 7 people all reaching into the same bag without thinking twice feels slightly questionable. But at the time, it didn't even cross your mind. 8. Playing outside until it got dark. There was no schedule, no messages, no updates. You just went outside and stayed there. Sometimes you planned it. Most of the time, you didn't. You'd step out of the house and within minutes, find someone you knew. And that was it. The rest of the day figured itself out. Football in the street, riding bikes up and down the same stretch of road, walking aimlessly between places without really deciding where you were going. Time didn't feel structured, it just passed. Slowly, then suddenly. Hours would go by without noticing. No one checked in. No one needed to. There was only one rule: be back before it gets dark. And everyone knew exactly what that meant. Not a specific time, not a number on a clock, just a feeling. The moment when the light started to fade, when the air changed slightly. And then, one by one, the streetlights came on. That was the signal. No discussion, no reminder, just an unspoken agreement that the day was over. And somehow, everyone made it home. 9. Using your jumper as goalposts. You didn't need equipment to play football. You didn't need a proper pitch. You just needed space and something to mark the goal. And most of the time, that something was your jumper. 2 jumpers placed on the ground, roughly spaced apart, not measured, not exact, just about right. That was your goal. The pitch could be anywhere. A quiet street, a patch of grass, even a car park if there was enough room. And the game started immediately. No setup, no organization, just first to 3 or next goal wins. The rules were flexible, constantly changing depending on what happened. Was that in? No, it went wide. No, it didn't. It went between the jumpers. Arguments were part of it. Loud, confident, completely unresolved, sometimes lasting longer than the game itself. But somehow, it didn't matter. Because the game always carried on. No referees, no structure, just instinct. And that was enough. 10. Calling your friend's house phone. If you wanted to speak to your friend, there was only one option. You called their house. No texting first, no checking if they were free, no warning at all. You picked up the phone, dialed the number from memory, and waited. Each ring felt longer than it actually was. Because you never knew who would answer. Sometimes it was a parent, sometimes an older sibling. Occasionally someone you'd never spoken to before. Hello? There was always that brief pause. Then you had to say it. Hi, is David there? Simple. But it felt like a moment. Then came the waiting. The phone slightly away from your ear, muffled voices in the background. Footsteps. Someone calling their name from another room. You stood there, holding the line, hoping they were actually in. Because if they weren't, that was it. You'd have to try again later. But when they did pick up, there was no delay, no warm-up. You went straight into conversation. Because getting to that point had already taken effort. And that made it feel different. Looking back, none of this felt unusual. It was just how things were. Unstructured, unfiltered, and completely normal at the time. But today, most of it would never be allowed. Which of these do you remember doing? And what else would never survive today? Let me know in the comments. And if this brought something back for you, subscribe for more.